Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Tech Bandit. Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Primer series. This one is going to be a little different, but first, before I go any further, here's a big little shout to those lovely people who run these with me in the background. I do a lot of these solos, but unfortunately, unless it's like the DPS primer, I really have to be in a group to show off tanking or healing. So again, here's the wonderful people who gave me a hand with this. Thanks, folks. And now we get on to the main part of the video. Alright, tanking. The point man, the guy in the front, the one who's going to be taking the hits. Oh, pardon me. Ooh, clearing my head the old-fashioned way, apparently. I think I just broke the sound. Sorry about that. Tanking is very much an art. And the one, obviously, again, as I said in the first video, I cannot teach you how to do this just through videos. I can give you enough to make you dangerous and get you started, but only experience will teach you the whole 9 yards. Now, there's going to be 4 points to this video. There was originally only going to be 3, but I was thinking about it, I realized there's a 4th bit I need to cover here, so it'll be in here. The 4 points I'm going to be covering here is positioning, rotation, and again, rotation is probably going to be a little quick section because it's not super critical as it once was. Then we're going to go with active mitigation, and then finally tank swapping, which is something I did not mention in the intro video, but I realize is sort of an important mechanic for tanks that you need to pay attention to and you need to be able to handle. It shows up multiple times, even multiple times in the same instance in some scenarios, so it is going to be something I want to cover. But pardon me. Let's get started. Positioning. Tanking has the most interesting take on positioning. Unlike some of the other roles where it's just making sure you're not in fire, you're not in something dangerous, and you're not getting hit by something you shouldn't be. Tanking's is also how everyone else handles your positioning. Hang on, let me phrase that. Your positioning dictates everyone else's, and thus it's of critical importance that you position properly. There we go. Again, part of positioning is, as I said, not standing in fire, not standing in acid, not standing in those dangerous little circles of any number of descriptions. But more importantly, hang on, move the mic a little, there you go. Because everyone else has to go off the boss, you are in control of everyone else's positioning. So this is things like, if the boss does drop rings of fire, rings of acid, whatever, you may be forced to move the boss slightly left or right to ensure that your DPS, melee DPS at least, can get in there. And that's really what makes this so important, the fact that it's its own point instead of a sub point like you'll see in the other videos, which I haven't made yet, so oops. This also kind of leads into the tank swap mechanic a little bit, although I will be covering it dedicated later. The fact that there are going to be times you have to move the boss long distances. In some scenarios, I'm going to use the last fight, Arch, I always call him Arch, and the Hellfire Citadel. There are going to be times you're going to have to move the boss from one side of the room, of the area, to the other, just to be able to maintain proper positioning. Maintain proper positioning. Wow, that's a tongue twister for you. This, obviously, is a very important tank role, and that's why it's on this list. But that's really just the start of it. But this should give you an idea on positioning, why you have to pay attention to it as the tank. And now we're going to move on to rotation. Tanks rotate a little differently. Every tank is going to have a few minor differences here and there. For example, some rely on proc chances. Warriors come to mind on this one, whereas others are more steady as she goes scenarios. Paladins come to mind. Very stable rotation on paladins. Actually, almost everyone else other than warriors, and I think of that. And rotation here is one part aggro generating ability, something that keeps you ahead of the DPS, though admittedly nowadays that's nowhere near as much of a problem as it used to be. That could change in Legion, however. We may see that shift. And other aspects are, of course, using active mitigation, because in some scenarios, your attacks were part of your active mitigation. But we're going to cover that a little bit in the next point, which may actually lead to my segue here shortly. I still wish I could find an orc on a segue. God, that would have been the best transition I'd ever had. Just beep beep, zzz, buzz across the screen. Moving on. And, the rotations are relatively simple for tanks. You've got enough buttons to worry about. You don't need to throw more in. Active mitigation generally comes in two parts: proactive and reactive. A proactive example of a mitigation ability is the current rune tap that Death Knights have. Shield block. Shield block for warriors. Shield of the Righteous for paladins. These abilities designed to stop damage up front and let you, again, mitigate part of that out damage. Reactive is reacting to damage you've just taken. This would be Death Strike for Death Knights. This ability that will heal them. Actually, heal and shield depending on the scenario. So, and again, everything's due to change, but a lot of these reactive mitigations are, again, you have to be able to survive the first strike, so it balances things a lot. You're always going to want to pay attention. You know the big strikes are going to be coming, but a lot of times some of these are worked into the rotation. For example, Shield of the Righteous used to be a spender we used, is a spender we used at this time, as protection of paladins. And I don't know if that's going to be up on the screen. I haven't figured out who my tank on at the time of recording the audio. Oops. But these are often either short-term bursts or just quick little things using something that will give you a few seconds to keep your let your healer catch up a bit. Whereas again, reactive is mostly healing oriented, though not always. And we're actually seeing that nerfed come Legion. We're going to see a greater focus be on your active, proactive mitigation and less on the healing capacity of tanks. We're going to see those sort of tanks doing really solid showings on the healing charts kind of go away as more of that keep tank alive responsibility shifts to the healers. However, we should see active mitigation become a more enjoyable experience, I guess, for lack of better terms. When you hit the button, you should feel like you're making a difference. That's, from what I've read, is the goal of it. Now, this last one is a bit of an odd mechanic, and again, not every fight uses this. And this last one primarily applies to raids over just dungeon tanking, but it is a mechanic that can kick your butt and wipe raids really fast if you don't know it, so I am going to cover it. I don't know why I'm waving this my notebook around that I have the script in, because you guys can't see me. The tank rotation is a relatively simple mechanic. One tank hits taunt and takes it from the other tank. This may be because the boss has left a nasty ability that will just, wipe you out. It'll make it hard for your healers to keep up. There's any number of things it can be. I've seen them all under the sun. And again, the tank swap is a relatively simple mechanic. Hit taunt, grab boss, move on. But you have to be paying attention for it. So if you're a tank, be ready to be watching for that cue to flip the switch, throw the taunt, whatever you want to call this, and grab it from him. And again, that's one that's, again, more raid oriented, so don't worry about too badly early on, but be aware that that is something. If you have a voice chat system your group is using, be listening to it. You don't need a microphone. They don't need to hear you, but you've got to be able to hear it when somebody goes, switch, so you can grab it. Trust me, I've seen it happen, and I'll fall apart. I guess that's really all I wanted to cover for the basics of tanking primer. Stats, again, stats is a whole nother video, and we'll cover those more when I go into the individual classes, because they're going to shift, and they're different for everyone. For example, right now, for Paladins, it's haste to maximize holy power to utilize in your spenders. Come Legion, however, that shifts to crit to get more Grand Crusade procs to make better Shields of the Righteous and better Light of the Defenders. But we're keeping up on the 10-minute mark now, so I've got this video exactly where I want. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I've got on this topic. Again, this is a quick little primer, something to give you a quick briefing. I'll go into more details when I get into the individual classes. Again, I may do primers for the classes and then do in-depths, just so you guys can sit down, look at one, or look at the other. In the meantime, folks, my name's Tech Bandit. I wish you all good luck, safe travels, and good hunting. I'll see you in the next one, folks.